In 1954, Dr. Joseph Murray and his team would perform the first successful human-to-human organ transplant, putting a kidney from one twin brother into another. For his work, Dr. Murray would receive a Nobel Peace Prize in the 90s for pioneering the field in organ transplants. And what you're looking at right now is one of my favorite activities on the Rim, which also happens to be organ transplants. I'm sure many of you watching are, avid Rimmers, and as such, you guys are intimately familiar with the process of ethically extracting and harvesting organs. But for those who don't know, Rimworld is a colony management game where you oversee a group of colonists as you expand your base and deal with all manners of man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. I would call it a somewhat complicated and frustrating game, as you spend many hours building this base up, doing the best that you can, and then, one colonist has a mental break and decides now is a good time to have a cookout in the gasoline storage, or, murder another colonist. The Rim is a brutal place, and I feel like that's a pretty safe, pretty lukewarm take to have about the Rim. But this is also supplemented by the fact that there's a pretty robust medical system, and scars of past battles or actions can show on your colonists. You could get into a very bad spoon fight and lose a kidney, or, not have it work as good anymore. This is important to keep in mind as you play, because if you have a, let's say a busted ass colonist whose body is covered in scars, and as a result of those scars, he's in constant pain, shock horror, it could have an adverse effect on his quality of life. It could slow him down, make movements slower, he might have brain damage, that could really mess him up, or he could just be in so much pain he goes absolutely, like, as the kids say, cuckoo bonkers. So let's say one of your colonists is missing a kidney, all right? Last week's smoke leaf binge went a little too crazy, all right, and something popped out. Well, the simple answer is to replace it. But where do we get it from? You have two choices, really, on the Rim. You could either buy an organ from someone, which might be more money than you're willing to afford, and the traders who stock these items are far and few between, or, you could just, take it from someone. Now, keep in mind, I'm a business-orientated kind of guy. I want my colony to have the wealth it deserves to buy the things it needs. My colonists, they add to my colony. They labor and they toil to create vital resources like beer, drugs, and food. Like the basic necessities. And you see, my prisoners, which my colony has a lot of, they subtract from my colony. They are in prison for a reason, usually for attacking my colony. And they just sit in their little prison box doing nothing all day except eating the food that my colonists have labored for. So, as a progressive that I am, I want these people to do more with their life than just rot away in prison, and I feel like that's the take of most Rimworlders, and I figure they ought to give back to the community that they once wanted to take from, pay their societal debt. And what better way to do this than to give their organs? But this got me thinking, what is the actual real dollar value, the real USD dollar value of an organ in Rimworld, and how does that compare to real life? The first thing we're gonna have to do is find out how we actually get a USD value in the Rim. And as it turns out, it's a lot easier than you might think. See, in Rimworld, the main currency for trading is actually silver. And that makes sense. It's a precious metal, and historically it's been used as a currency since the beginning of civilization. For a lot of games, this is where it would end because, one silver doesn't really mean a lot in a real life context. I mean, especially when we're talking about precious metals, because prices usually go off of weight. Fortunately for us, everything in Rimworld has a weight to it. So if we go on the Wikipedia page, we can find out that one silver equals 0.008 kilograms, or 8 grams. And yeah, I'm metric pilled, all right? Deal with it.
Editing Chris here. I just want to let you know that you can see discrepancy in what's showed on screen and what I'm talking about. I recorded the coin app stuff on a different day, so the prices changed, obviously. And that was after I wrote the script and recorded all the stuff in person. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Now, if we take those 8 grams of silver and we bring them over to my trusty, coinapps.com. Yeah, okay, sure. We'll be using that. If we take it over to coinapps.com and we plug that stuff in, we assume it's pure silver. 1 silver would equate to $10.50 US. And so 1 kidney will sell for about 900 silver market value. That's what the game says, at least. And this depends, it fluctuates depending on what kind of trader that you have conducting the trade in game. But let's just take it at face value and say we're going to get 900 bones for every kidney that we sell. So 900 silver multiplied by the weight of 1 silver, 0.008 kilograms, will give us about 7.2 kilograms. Now we plug that stuff into the Coinbase calculator app, and that gives us a market rate of $9,525 USD, or
26.385
Vietnamese dong. So how does this compare to what a real kidney sells for? Well, I mean, that is the hardest part of all, because, you know, kidney operations and selling them are usually pretty illegal. You know, I can't really go on a website and find current prices. I mean, I'm sure I can, but like, I'm not gonna do that. But most studies suggest that it's anywhere between 100 to 200,000 USD. I also want to point out that moving forward, like, pretty much from what I could find, all organ prices, kidney, liver, heart, that kind of stuff, they all go for about the same, and that's just their best estimation, because, you know, once again, the data isn't really there. You know, black market organ operations are not exactly the kind of industry you want to be keeping an airtight paper trail on. Going back to the rim, if we were to look at a heart now, its going rate on the market is about 1,200 silver, which, you know, when we put that through my calculations, my scientific process, that comes out to about $12,700 USD, give or take. Moving on to
lung,
that fetches about 1,000 silver, and I believe that comes out to about, let's check the notes here, around 10,500 USD. Does this mean that we're getting ripped off in the rim? I mean, like, kinda, I guess. I think it's important to know that, like, a lot of these people who get their organs extracted, like in illegal operations, they don't really get a lot of money, if any at all, you know? So when we're looking at this real life price, a lot of it comes from, like, middlemen jacking up the price, and then the doctors who are being paid to install the organ. Very little money actually goes to the people who the organ came from. But since we're running a semi-legit operation on the rim, you know, we can kind of get more of that profit. But I guess, like, finally, it would be kind of busted from a gameplay perspective if you got like 20 to 30,000 silver, like, for a single organ. That would just be it would just break the game balance. I was, at this point in my research, a little curious as to how much my colony wealth was worth in USD solely based on silver. And I'm sitting at around, I want to say, around 61,000 silver, which, you know, not bad for my humble little colony. But if we plug that into my calculations, you know, make all those computations, it comes out to around 650,000 USD. So, once again, not bad. Finally, I wanted to see how much, you know, my kidney stockpile was worth. I do my fair share of harvesting, okay? And keep in mind, though, my game is heavily modded. I have a large morgue where I keep tons of bodies from raids, and my doctors work around the clock to extract anything they can out of these people. But that would put me at around 108 kidneys. 108 kidneys going at market rate would give me around 97,200 silver, or 777 kilograms of silver. And plugging this into the calculator again, that's just over 1 million USD. So from Dr. Murray's Nobel Peace Prize to me hoarding around $1 million in kidneys on the rim, I think organ transplants have come a long way, and I hope you learned something from this video. I mean, it's all pretty much useless information, but who cares? It's whatever. It's a little fun thought experiment. If you guys enjoyed, please subscribe. Join the Discord down below. I might be doing some more Rimworld lore videos. I mean, I want to, but I'm really, truthfully, I'm just doing whatever kind of interests me in the moment. And I'm gonna start branching out into other things, but I still want to hit, you know, all the rim spots, the R spot, you know? So, yeah, okay, bye.